Hello guys, here and welcome back to this Pygame series. In our last class, we were able to draw the goblin on the screen and then make the goblin move from the right to the left side. So in this tutorial, like I told you in our last class, we'll be working majorly on the uh, player surface. And before that, I will have to like fix some things on the goblin that really makes it not really moving very well. I'm going to fix some of this. So I'll be using rectangle for that. And before I use rectangle, I have to like explain the difference between rectangle on when we are using rectangle for image and without rectangle. So let's say for example this is our image, and then when we add image without using rectangle, we can only access this point of the image. So that when we want to like adjust it or use it, this is the only point that we can access. But when we add an image and then with a rectangle, then you can see we can access different points of it. We can access the top right, we can access the top left, we can access the midpoint, we can access the left and the mid left. So all those things are the features that the rectangle is going to give to us. And if we want to like make a player move towards the left, we can say player name dot left plus 5, and this will move, unlike the way we did it in our last class that we have to like define the variables and then pygame dot draw, then we access the variable from here and add 5 to it from here. So rectangle will be making it very easy and kind of cleaner for us to like write codes in Pygame. So we are going to create the rectangle now for the goblin. But before we do that, I will first convert the uh, images that we added or we loaded to Pygame to a form that is more reusable in Pygame. So I'm going to say dot convert, then double bracket. Likewise for these two, dot convert, and I believe that's the two image we have added, and this will make our code a bit faster. But sometimes if we use this dot convert for some images, it will not come out very good. So let me check how this will be. Oh sorry, I have to change this from code to pygame. So you can see for the background everything is fine with dot convert, but for the goblin it's not really going well with it. So what we are going to do now, we are going to add slash alpha to the goblin so that it will be a little clean. So save this and then we run our program again, and then you see our goblin is back to normal and everything is working fine now. So the next thing I want to do in this game is that I want to make I want to insert the okay, like I said earlier, I want to put the goblin into a rectangle. So I'm going to remove this. I won't be needing this since I'm going to add a rectangle for it. I'm going to say goblin rect, which is equal to goblin surface dot get rect, and then this will get the rect of the goblin for me, and I can set it to the particular position I want it to be, which since our total width is 800, I think I should set it to 80 because I want it to be at the extreme end. And I'm going to set the height to, since our height is 450, I think I should set the height to 385 or 380, and I think that will be fine. But since we are using rectangle, we can make it more specific. I can say mid left, mid right, since we have the advantage of all those positioning. So I can say bottom or mid bottom, something like that, mid bottom, which is equal to this, and it will help us fix it in the exact position where we want it to be. So once I save this now and then come here, change this, instead of this I'm going to use goblin rect here too, goblin rect. And you remember there are places where we used goblin width, so we have to change it to rect goblin rect, then dot left. Now if we want to use only the left width, or we can, if we just want to use the entire width, you can say dot x, but I think I want only the width. I'm going to say dot left, and I can copy this, and wherever I need to put my goblin width, I will replace goblin width with the this goblin rect dot left, and I believe by now our code is ready to run fine. I see everything is back to normal, so our goblin is using the rectangle surface now. So the next thing I want to do here again is to insert a picture. Then I'm going to say player surface, which is going to be equal to pygame dot load image sorry, pygame.image.load, and then open bracket, specify the directory, which is for the player, I think outro is what I used, png, and we have to convert this as well, so that's convert alpha, and then close bracket. I'm going to save this too. I think it's fine now. And before, okay, I have to create a rectangle for it too as well. I'm going to say player surface, but not surface again, but player rect, which is going to be equal to player surface dot get rect. Then just like I did for the goblin, I'm going to do the same thing for the player, and then I'm going to specify the start position where I want it to be. But this time I want it to be in the opposite direction to the goblin, so I'm going to, instead of 780, I'm going to use something like 20, so that it will be in the other side of the width. So, and for the height, I'm still going to maintain the same height, but I'm going to use 380 now instead of 385 because the goblin is a bit taller than the player or image. So, and after this, I'm going to bleed it to the screen. So I'm going to go to my draw function and screen dot bleed, open bracket. Then I'm going to say player surface first, then player rect, and I believe that is enough to work. So when I clear my screen, and then you can see our player on the opposite side of the goblin, and the goblin coming from the right side, and our player is in the left side. So the next thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to make the player jump. Each time we press this space bar, the player will jump. So to do that, I have to create a variable that will determine how high my player is going to jump. So I'm going to say player gravity, which I'm going to set to minus 22. And I hope you know why I'm using minus. Just like in our first tutorial, I told you that when we are moving up, we are using minus to move up, and when we are coming down, we are using plus. And the number 22, you can make yours to 20 or any number depending on how high you want your goblin to, you want your player to jump. So I want mine to jump to at least height of 22 or 20. But I think, let me just see how 22 will look like. Then we can come here and define our events that will make the spacebar work. So I can say keys. We have to get all the keys that is being imputed. So we have to use this just like we did in the first tutorial. Pygame dot key dot get pressed dot get pressed. I believe the spelling is correct. Pygame dot key dot get pressed, and then after that you will come and specify the exact key we want to be pressed and the action that is to happen if it is pressed. So we are going to say if keys. You know, our keys are dictionary. This key is set to a dictionary, so we have to specify the exact key. So we are going to say pygame dot k. Everything has to be in capital letter. Dot k space, and then if the k space is being pressed, what is the action we want to happen? We want our gravity, our player gravity, to be set to minus 22. So each time we press this key, it's going to set our player gravity to minus 22. And then before that, in our draw function, I can come down and define it, but I think I should just leave it in the draw function, I guess. I'm going to set something like player rect to be plus equal to our player gravity. So this is what is going to make our player. So automatically when I run this code now, it's going to raise our player rect, but not just player rect. I think it's player rect dot bottom, because I need the down part of the player rectangle. I'm going to use player rect dot bottom. So it's going to reduce the bottom of this player rectangle to the player gravity, which we already know is minus 22. And then after it has raised it, we want it to gradually come down. I'm going to add 1 to our player gravity so that it will gradually bring it down. And to do that, I will do this, and just like we have minus 22 plus 1 is minus 21, then plus another positive 1 is minus 20. So that's how it will be bringing the height of our goblin. And I think if I put this on, that is going to be more better, so that I will know that here is just for my draw function. So I think I'm going to cut this from here and then take it down to where I called the function, right, and put it here. And I think it's going to be better here, and I have to put a little space here. When I save this code now, clear the screen, and then you see our player will jump and go disappear from the screen. So let me I don't think most of you saw what just happened. So our player just jumped down. Okay, we have set this to take it to 22 back. So let's see what is going to happen again. When I repeat the code, I see once I press the spacebar, it will be going up, and if I leave the spacebar, it will go down, which is very bad, and only the spacebar will be bringing it up to that minus 22, minus 22. It will be adding minus 22 to it, depending on how down it's going. So we don't want our player to go down or leave the screen, so we have to like set a function that will get that for us. So we're going to say if our player rect is I think is greater than 380. If our player rect is greater than 380, then what is going to happen? We want to set it back to we want to set our player rect. I think we have to add this dot bottom to it so that we will be more specific. If our player bottom is greater than 380, then we want to set our player bottom to 380. I believe this will work. So let's see if this is going to work. Right? Let's test it and see. And it's working. But one more thing is that while our player is jumping, we can still make it jump, and that's wrong. We have to set it in such a way that it's only when our player is down that we can make it jump. So the two conditions for a player to jump is when the space button is pressed and when our player button is down. So our player rect dot bottom equal to 380. So that's the two conditions that will make our player jump. You see, we cannot jump while we are jumping already, so we can jump. So when the goblin is coming, we can jump. But right now, the player is just as if it's static image. It's not making. There's no change in his position. It's not like it's moving or something like that. So we have to like make it look better a little bit. So I'm going to animate the player now. So to do that, I'll insert more player image. So just like this same one we have, I'm going to copy this and duplicate it for our player image. So I'll copy it and then go down and paste it. Then I'm going to change this to R1, which is another different image again. And then I need another image again for when the player is jumping. I need it to show a different image that is different from the first and the second image. That's the right two and the right one. I want a stand image, so I'm going to call it standing.png, and I have to change it from player surface. I have to rename all this. I think I have to make this player 1. I think I have to make this player 2, and this should be player jump. I believe everything is fine now. And what else again? And I need to create an index for it. So player index which is going to be equal to 0. But before the index, I need a player list. So player list, and then I'm going to put my player 1 and player 2 inside the list. So I'm going to say player 1 and player 2. That's the two images that is in the list now, and I'm going to use this index to access them. So we are using our player surface here, and right now the player surface is not going to work because there's no variable here that is named player surface. I'm going to name a variable player surface now, player surface, and then which is going to be equal to our player list. And right now, our player list is a list, and we have to use the index to access it. So I'm going to say player index, and by default we set the player index to 0. So we have to get a function that will be changing the index of this player so that our image will look as if it's moving like that. So we have to define the function at the top. I want to define my function up here, so I'm going to say def player animation. I believe this one is correct. Then I forgot to bracket tab. So we are going to import two variables we are going to need here. So we are going to make them global so that we'll be able to use them in this our function. So global player surface and player index. So that's the two variables that we want to use for this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is, if our image is jumping, let's say if the height image height, let's say our player rect dot bottom is less than 380, that means it's still at the top, then we want to show the stand image and not the animation. The player 1 and player 2 want to show player jump image. I'm going to set my surface to player jump, so I'm going to say player surface is going to be equal to player jump. So at this point where our player is jumping up is less than 380. 380 is the ground position of our player, so it's not up to, when it comes to 380 we want to change the image. So on the other side, else we want to show the image of the animation of it on the ground as if it's moving. So else, but remember our index, we set our index to by default to player index, we set the player index to 0 by default. We want to gradually add it so that it will change to 1, because the first index is 0 and then the second index is 1, so that it will change to 1 automatically. But if we just do it like this, it will be a kind of, it will be very fast and it will not be that real. So we have to do it to 0.1 so that it will be changing gradually and it will look more real. Then we're going to say something like, if player index is greater or equal to our player list, and you know our list, let's say, in case while we are adding it, it exceeds our player list, which is equal to 1, then we want to set it back to our default 0. So if it's greater than, not just this, the length of our player list, if our player index is greater than the length of our player list, then we're going to set player index back to 0. So that's what we are going to do. And then we are going to change the surface. So our player surface will change from the player jump to the player that is in the list. So we are going to set it to equal to, that surface is going to be equal to player list dot, oh sorry, in a bracket, player index. But right now we know there is every possibility for our index to have something like 0.02, 0.03, or that. So we want to set it to be integer by specific, to be an integer, so that if it's not 0 it should be 1. If it's not 1, integers are numbers that are specific, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, so that we'll not be having things like 1.0. So we are going to say int and then put this inside. So if I believe I put 2 brackets there, another bracket. And then after we have done this, I think we have to call our function before our function could work. I'll do this. Okay, I'm going to come here and I'm going to call the function. I'm going to call the function here. Let me just call it down. Let me just call it down here. So player animation. And I have to clear the space a little bit. Save this. Clear my screen. And then let's see what will happen. Something is wrong. Player list int player index. So I said list object is not callable. So let's see what happened. I say player surface is equal to player list, and then I think I used the wrong bracket. So let's see again what will happen. And you see everything is working fine now. And while it's jumping, it's showing a different image, and while it's on the ground, it's showing a different image. So I believe you enjoyed this tutorial. Please, I would love to see you in my next tutorial. If there's any part of this code that you do not understand, please you can comment in my comment box.